Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time for Us. With me, your host, Danny Wallace. I drive myself insane sometimes because I actually make myself have to redo these recordings over and over again, like these intros, because I always end up acting super weird for some reason on the first few takes. So let me try that again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Time for Us with me, Danny Wallace. It has been a moment in time. It has been several moments in time since the last time we spoke, since the last you heard of me, but I'm back. I'm back. Look at my hair. I know this is probably not why you came here, but just look at it. Things are happening. Things that I have no control over. So much like life, it's like not even a metaphor. Is it a metaphor? My hair is a direct representation of life itself. It just goes its own way. And all you can do is embrace it. But also you have some control. Anyway. Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Leonista 100% Karoo Agave Spirit. Today I'm holding in my hands the Reposado Black. Unfortunately, I'm not drinking at the moment. So if I was drinking a bottle of tequila every podcast episode, or half a bottle of tequila every single time I recorded, there would be some serious problems, I think. But I digress. So I've mentioned this before, but this cannot be called tequila or mezcal because it's not from Mexico, and that is a prerequisite of naming it as such. But if you have to drink this delicious beverage in a respectful manner, that is, I don't even know if I know how to do that, but I can say that I have drunk it in a very disrespectful manner, and I still did not have much of a hangover, to be honest with you. So I think that's just got to do with the very clean and distilled nature of this beautiful Karoo Agave Spirit. And I was just admiring this bottle, guys. Look at that. I noticed this for the first time today. I don't know if you can see that. Let me try catch it in the light. Can you see that? There's like a sacred geometry symbol at the bottom of this bottle. How magical is that? Tell me that doesn't say something that this is made with love and respect. Anyway, that's enough about Leonista. I think I've spoken about them for about 3 minutes. Today's episode, back onto the topic of why we are here and what we're here to discuss. Today's episode is going to be a recap of Season 1. Season 1. There was a time in my life where I thought I was going to be Joe Rogan and just have all the episodes just one after the other without breaking them up into seasons. And do you know that, actually, just a sidebar, the other day I looked at the number of episodes he's released and I did a calculation. And I said, if I have to release an episode, I think it was either I said at the current pace that I'm doing it, in order to have released as many episodes as Joe Rogan, I would have to be doing this for the next 50 years. Whoa. Okay. So yeah, I'm not trying to compete with Joe out here. I just thought that was an interesting fact to lay down on you guys. I'm just going to also give a disclaimer. Please, will you forgive me? My mouth has stopped working. It does not know how to podcast properly because I haven't done this in so long. And I keep fumbling over my words, and it's making me have to activate parts of my brain that have been lying dormant for the last month, over a month. Yowza. So please bear with me. Speaking of Season 1, this is going to be a recap. We're going to look at what we've learned, how we got here, and why actually I felt the need to create a clear line in the sand between these seasons, which came about quite organically, if I'm honest. It's not something that I had the deep intention of doing, but it just felt right. So after my unannounced hiatus, which I've just recently come back from, I kind of took a step back for about a month and a half or so. And it almost was something that happened quite naturally. I didn't even plan to do it, which is kind of also a bit of a crap one for you guys that are listening and kind of hoping that I'm going to release something and wondering what the fuck's going on. So I apologize for that. But essentially, after having done this for over a year now and doing all my own editing and watching myself and listening to myself and coming up with my own topics and all of that jazz, I've learned a good few things about me and about what it is that I actually want to contribute to the world. So one of the main things that I've learned, and I mentioned this in one of my Instagram posts, but it's that I have quite a negative world view. And this came about through just sheer time invested in listening to myself speak, and the way that I saw things and the way that I would approach resolving things, or even the way that I would engage with other people in discourse around certain topics. So I'm very grateful to this podcast for highlighting this for me. The kicker actually came around at Africa Burn, which I know everyone's like, Africa Burn. Yeah, fine, whatever, say what you want. I also maybe felt that way. I went for the first time this year, and I can confirm that I actually did have a life-changing experience. I hate to say it. I know you guys are pissed off. Those of you that loathe or have a bit of an agenda against Africa Burn are pissed off to hear me say it. But I did have a life-changing experience. Part of that feeds into this worldview thing. And I'll give you a little bit of like a high-level view of that. Basically, because the festival, don't say the F word. It's not a festival. The gathering was or is such an extreme climate and is so hectic to be in. You have to bring obviously all your own stuff. You set up your own tents. You have to bring whatever food it is you're eating, like anything and everything that you want. You have to provide for yourself: water, showers, you name it, you have to provide it. And I've realized that I have quite a thing with dirt, actually, and having dirty hands and having dirty fingernails. So basically what happened was, day after day, you basically don't have much access to sanitation or running water, obviously. Like, you have a shower once a day, but you don't go to the toilet. There's not like a tap for you to wash your hands. If you're lucky, there's a hand sanitizer pump that might have like one residual spray of hand sanitizer left in it. And then that's you. It's just you for the rest of the day until you shower again the next morning. So I started getting like I wanted to tear the hair out of my head. I was getting riled up. And I noticed more and more how I just I was complaining. Whether or not anyone else can acknowledge that or say that I did do that, but either I was just complaining in my head, but I was getting so like tightly wound and I was getting irritated, and then it just like made me look for all the negative things. And I was just like, oh my word, like bitching and complaining about there not being clean, like, I can't wash my hands, or fuck, the toilets are disgusting and all this stuff. And yeah, fair, those are things that are definitely worth acknowledging as not being the best situations, or, not being the most comfortable. But it made me realize that actually what I choose to do is fixate on the negative, because at the same time that I'm having dirty hands is the same time that I'm dancing on the playa with all of my closest friends and wearing a crazy outfit and hearing some of the best music I've ever heard and like sending it and just feeling like free. So I think it made me realize that I really need to start focusing on the positives in life. That was the main reason that I took a bit of a step back from the podcast. I just had to. The inside of me was screaming that I just had to. And I'm so grateful that I did. On the notes of that, I do want to add that I don't believe that you should have these like epiphanies about yourself and then set about trying to change drastically overnight. I'm under no illusion that I still am that person and that I do still seek out the negative. But rather than trying to eradicate this version of myself, which I think I might have tried to do in the past, and honestly, when you do that, you almost just kind of solidify it further. If you start, then I was honestly doing this at Africa Burn, then I was fixating on how negative I was. So it's like I was being negative, and then I was like, oh my fuck, you're so negative. Like, ew. And that was just the same thing on repeat in like a different variation. What the hell? Talk about driving yourself mentally insane. So now I'm looking at things and holding space for the fact that, yes, I have this attribute to myself. I have this way of seeing things. But rather than hating on it. I've just come to accept it. And with acceptance, I feel lighter. And that lightness has meant that it's like quietened down this busyness in my mind and given me the capacity to create the opportunity to be different, to create that little space or the little gap where I can try and be different rather than completely consuming myself with my own fucking bullshit and negative self-talk. So now I'm like, cool, yeah, you like to complain, you like to see the negative, but also when you do that, why don't you just like try also think about something that's positive as well? So now I've started doing that, and I'm trying to rather see things through a positive lens. Not all the time, that's not possible for me right now, but just when I start feeling myself being really negative, I'm like, catch a wake up. For anyone that's just listening, audio, that was me slapping myself, fake slapping myself. I'm like, wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. You don't have to be so negative. Let's try find something positive. And then I take the big pile of negative that I've built and I put a pretty little bow on top of it, and that's my positive. And you know what? That's working for me so far. Okay, another thing that I'm learning at the moment, this podcast has been the greatest lesson in dedication. Because basically, I've been doing this for an extended period of time, not forever. Jeepers creepers, I'm talking about it as if I've done it for like 5 years. But in essence, what's kind of happened is that a lot of the things that were mentally challenging that got me energized and helped me focus more, because I was trying to learn and figure things out, even though it was challenging, it also kind of kept my attention more. Now I'm kind of getting into a place where I got a bit of the hang of things. I understand how it works. I kind of have a bit of like a recipe that I'm following in a way. And now it's just about dedicating myself to constantly pushing through and just like slowly moving the needle, which is nothing I've ever done before in my entire life. Another like my greatest blind spots or areas of improvement is my lack of consistency. And that's a gift that this podcast is giving me. It's showing me that I need to show up and I need to do it all the time, consistently, in order to reach the level of success that I want to. So yeah, it's been an interesting one because there's a part of me that's felt like a little bit of a plateau, and then you have to try and find motivation after that. So you're like, crisis, cool, I've plateaued. Then you get a bit bored, and then you're like, oh, well, the concept of chasing this success seems a little bit too, almost like, I feel like you could kind of view it like I'm a little bit embarrassed that I haven't gotten wherever I wanted to be in this hypothetical, unattainable world that I created for myself, in which I thought I'm going to publish 3 podcast episodes and get like a mega huge brand deal. I didn't really think that, but I did kind of think that, to be honest. Delulu. So now I'm like, cool, been doing this for a while. Turns out this is actually quite a slow burn, and it's going to require me to consistently chip away at it. And then you have to be like, hey, how do I keep myself excited about this? I can either let it go, which I literally also in this like hiatus phase that I went through, had these thoughts that would cross my mind where I thought I should just stop doing it. I'm like, maybe it's just not your thing. Maybe it's just not your thing. You should just let it go. And then I had to like reel myself back in and be like, what the fuck are you saying? Where's this coming from? Stop. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And another way that you can do that is, or like to stay motivated, is you need to make something exciting for yourself. So when I started plateauing, I was like, okay, what can I do that's going to make me excited to do this podcast? Because it mustn't be a chore. I mustn't just be sitting here recording for the sake of recording. What am I going to do that is going to get me pumped to get behind the mic, get me pumped to edit and to reach out to people? So that kind of feeds into my season 2 strategy, which is to get a lot more international guests. It's always been on my agenda, but now that's what excites me, like getting big guests. It actually makes me scared. More than excites me, it makes me scared. But that's the point, right? So now I'm like, cool, that's what I'm going to do. I'm reaching out to people on Instagram. I'm getting a lot of positive responses. And I'm having conversations, or I'm queuing up conversations with people that are genuinely exciting for me, that I feel like my time invested or their time invested with me is pretty fucking cool. It's like a bit of an honor, you know? So that's one way that I'm going about remaining motivated and trying to keep myself on the path of dedication. On the notes of the path of dedication, we've all heard this a million times, but especially if you're creating anything, you just have to do it. Sometimes you just have to do it and put it out there. And even just close your eyes for a bit and like peek through your fingers and say, you know, what's happening? And then look at it again when you have the courage to. But perfect is the enemy of done. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? If you're chasing perfection, there's a chance that you are procrastinating, and there's a chance that you're acting out of fear, and that you're delaying exposing yourself or being completely vulnerable and being completely seen. Because when you put something out there, it means that everyone gets to look at it, and you open yourself up for judgment. It's a motto that I've had to try and remind myself of constantly, especially when it comes to social media. I think with the podcast, because it's a little bit more sporadic, I've lowered my frequency of posting, so I can be more intentional with what I'm putting out there. But with posting on social media and just the like flippant nature of it, and how it is just you're putting something out there and it can take you like 2 hours to make something, even more, and it can get like 30 likes or something. You can pour your heart and soul into something and you think it's funny, or you think it's quirky, or you think it's a good idea, or you think it's even just entertaining. And you put it out there, people can scroll past it without even batting an eyelid. Oh my word. That is some hard shit right there. Honestly, mad respect to all the influencers out there. Mad respect. So that's an approach that I've had to adopt. It's just that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And just do it. Just do it. Part of just doing it is also just trusting yourself. So it's getting out of your head and being okay with fucking up, being okay with being embarrassed. Oh my word. I love how our society's moved towards certain like obscure things that used to be uncool, and now being cringe is cool. Like, just be cringe. Be cringe. Just do it. Put it out there. Embarrass yourself. So what? What's the worst that can happen? And I think, yeah, like, it's just having the courage to really trust yourself and trust your decision making and trust your taste. Trust your discernment. So another pointer that I've written down here is how my podcast has literally changed me as a person. I find this one to be quite interesting because I've always been quite an outgoing person, and I have been extroverted in that I derive or I gain energy from external sources. Prior to this podcast, and even still today, actually, it started tapering down a fuckload, a lot. But a year and a half ago, I had way too many friends. It's just, I had way too many friend groups. I mean, I still have lots of friend groups, and I'm so grateful to all of them. Like, I love all my friends that I have, but I was putting in way too much effort with way too many people and trying to be best friends with as many people as possible. And I always had a social engagement. There's always someone's birthday. I was making plans for lunch, for breakfast, for drinks, for walks. I was partying. I was just like so totally overextending myself. It's actually a joke. And what this podcast has done for me is it's forced me to shift focus, and it's forced me to be a little bit more discerning with where I spend my time and what I choose to focus on. And just by virtue of that alone, I have now, like, without even trying, limited the amount of time that I have, and therefore limited the amount of time that I'm spending with people. It's like quite a funny thing, actually, because in taking this public standpoint and putting myself out there and having an opinion and engaging with people like this and connecting with people, strangers or friends who watch this, it's almost as though, I mean, the whole point is that you feel like you know me and that we are connected. That's something that I'm obviously aspiring to do, and that is something that I think is the essence of who I am as a person. But what I noticed with a lot of my friends is that because they were watching my podcast, they would stop checking in with me. So, which is so funny. So they'd be like, cool, they'd watch my podcast, amazing, obviously appreciate the support. But then they would kind of have this feeling like they'd just caught up with me because, to be frank, it's quite unnatural to sit and listen to someone speak in a monologue for 30 minutes. So I get it. It's quite a fair amount of engagement with one person and what feels like a one-on-one kind of setting. So it also made me have to I took it quite personally, actually, for quite a while. I was like, wow, does no one give a fuck about me? Like, does no one care about me? And then I started falling into that, negative worldview, a little bit of a victim mindset, and kind of, in a weird way, like validating also one of my worldviews, which is that I'm like an outsider and I'm unwanted. So in a way, in as much as that was confronting and challenging and hard for me, it's forced me to make peace with the fact that I can't expect too much from people, and that I need to learn to be my own source of strength and my own source of grounding. And I can't be so easily influenced by other people and like what they're deciding to do, or even how they choose to treat me. Like, I need to learn how to just focus on myself, because it seems like, in a weird way, that's what everyone else is doing. It feels like I was the last one to get the memo. I'm like, so we're not focusing on everyone else, and everyone else is like focusing on themselves. So thank the Pope, Baruch Hashem, thank you, podcast, for the fact that I have now developed the skill of focusing on myself. On the note of focusing on oneself and developing as a human being, I have moved to Komiki. Woo, surprise, grand reveal. As you can see, I'm sitting in a little thatch loft, which is situated on the beach in Komiki. And I decided to move here for 5 months on a short-term lease kind of thing, for the sheer purpose of focusing on myself, focusing on my career, focusing on the podcast, attaining and achieving all the goals that I've set out for myself with the podcast, because I was finding it really difficult to reroute my thought path and rewire my brain in Cape Town, because I just kept falling into the same kind of traps or the same kind of loops. And I guess I don't know if I could do what I'm doing now if I was still in Cape Town, which I don't know what that says. But what I do know is that your environment constitutes greatly towards your success. And I had to make a move to support myself in my dreams and my decisions, and not just like sit in Cape Town and complain about the fact that I'm unable to do this thing and then like beat myself up because I end up going on like a Thursday night bender because I'm feeling overwhelmed with the tasks that I've set in front of me. Whereas now I have my own space. I can literally leave my podcasting gear set up in the kitchen if I want to. I can go to bed when I want to. I can wake up when I want to. I can do whatever I want. And this is going to be a highly focused self-retreat, personal development retreat, work retreat. I'm focusing on the podcast, as I said, and I'm focusing on the podcast. And as I mentioned earlier, with it being more remote now, because I'm going to just be here on my own, it kind of ties quite nicely in with my pursuit of having international guests. So I'm going to have to get that waxed. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I'm only day 2 into it at the moment, and so far so good, really enjoying it. So stay tuned. You guys are going to see me start evolving into some kind of hippie. I'm going to start walking around barefoot, and who knows, maybe I'll have a rat tail the next time you see me on video. Just kidding. Or am I? Stay tuned. So guys, in summary, this podcast, Time for Us, has been recorded in Rome, in Lisbon, in New York, in Cape Town, in Tel Aviv, which that one has not been aired because of reasons that I can get into, but I don't know if I will. Mainly because, guys, if I give you one piece of information for free, whenever you are fucked, like as in drinking or like drooling, one tends to think that one of the greatest things you can do is record a podcast. The number of times I've had people say, we should record a podcast. I even took all my gear with me to Africa Burn. I schlepped it to Africa Burn. I've schlepped all of my gear to Boom Festival in Portugal. Let me tell you. And if there's one thing that I can say decisively at this point is that recording a podcast when you are drunk or high is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. I mean, look, it depends. It depends on the level of which of both of those things we're talking about. But yeah, like the ones that I haven't published, oh my gosh. Yeah, the one that I recorded in Tel Aviv was actually with my boyfriend, Aaron, when we went there this time last year, actually. And we were cracked and we were up late. It was like probably 6 a.m. And we decided, well, he was hucking me to try convince Omri, actually, who ended up coming on the podcast. Thanks, Omri. Much later. But at the time, we'd just met Omri. And he was like, no, you need to get Omri on the podcast. So I set up my whole thing at our friend Alon's house. And I just thought, I'm not going to pressure anyone into it, but it's set up. And if it happens organically, we can do it. Of course, it never happened because it's like daunting. No one wants to be recorded when they're partying. It's hectic. It's really hectic. So then I was like, you know what? Out of principle, Aaron Fox, you're going to sit your pretty little ass down. And we are not leaving this place until you record a podcast with me because I'm done being pressured and being told, you need to record a podcast when you X, Y, and Z, like when you're hanging upside down from an airplane flying through. No, guys, there's a time and a place. Anyway, so I was like, sit your ass down. We're recording a podcast. We did it. We sat down. We tried to record. We were talking in circles. It made no sense. It ended up getting extremely political. Extremely political. Things were being said that don't even, like, what? Like, what? I don't, like, what? I can't even repeat them. So, there would be things are being said for the sake of, like, arguing. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I just had to tell you that funny story. And now the podcast has come all the way into Komiki, which I'm hoping will be the beginning of much more deep, hearty, fun, vibey content. That is my intention for my stay here. And I'm planning on pouring every drop of my heart and soul into this podcast going forward, more so than I have before. So thank you for your support thus far. Season 2. Season 2. Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that jingle, as I've been saying since the dawn of time. But who knows, maybe season 2 will have a jingle of me singing something. You never know. That is all for today, guys. I delayed doing this podcast for a very long time because it's not like riding a bike. Not really. It's not really like riding a bike. Can kind of be, but not really, because I feel like when you stop doing it, you like, oh my word, how do I even do this thing again? So I've gotten back into it, but the notion of even doing it became more and more daunting with every passing day. It just became like so huge that I was staring up to it and being like, I can't even see through the clouds at the top there. How am I supposed to do this? But I finally did it. I'm proud of myself. I hope you are too. And I promise to work on actually using my mouth whole to speak properly in future. Thank you for listening. Please will you follow me on Spotify and rate this podcast if you enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram as well. My handle is Time for Us Podcast. If you would like to help support me in creating exclusive content, you can also subscribe to my Patreon. The link to that is in my Instagram bio. It's a very small monthly fee that just goes towards helping me pay my bills, helping me keep the lights on. So if you want me to eat dinner, if you want to see me looking healthy, happy, Healthy, wealthy, and wise. Subscribe to my Patreon. Just kidding. That was a hard sell. It was a hard sell. You don't have to, but it would be appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please will you also DM me if you guys have any suggestions for other episodes that you would like to hear from me. But yeah, you'll be hearing a lot more from me. Love you guys lots. And I'll see you in season 2, baby. Bye.